Good evening. You have landed on Divided We Stand's YouTube channel. We also ask that you visit our Facebook group page, which is also called Divided We Stand. We're not monetized. We ask that you become a member of our group page on Facebook. Fairly easy to find us there. You do have to answer a few questions if you want to become a part of our commiserating group, but that's not too difficult. And also, we do ask that you subscribe to this channel, not monetized. All we ask is that you check us out and commiserate with us. We have a show every Saturday night, or usually every Saturday night, and we can assure you that we will address your questions, at least most of them, when we can. That is the one advantage of having a small channel. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, it is the 9th of March, and I guess we're going to go moving the clocks ahead an hour fairly soon. I guess that's kind of a pain in the neck, but life goes on. In any case, I'd like to introduce my good friend, journalist, former journalist, educator, an all-around good guy, and that would be our David Price from Arlington, Virginia. Dave, what's up with David Price these days?
Well, I just wondered, with the light in the back, is that like your porn room or something? I mean,
there's a light in the back? I didn't notice that.
And green and purple, and so it's like is that like that's? I mean, I don't know. Like that's what I kind of think it looks like. I don't know what's going on. Hey, Brian. Let's see. We have nothing to talk about, so let's just go home.
Nah, there really isn't much to talk about, is there?
Oh my God! We could probably do 17 shows. Yes.
Go.
I think Jeff, we're going to talk about that at length in a moment. But the answer to your question is yes. It will be from a kitchen at some point, whether it's an opening or not. I don't know, but funny you should mention that. Actually, of course, memes have been out to that effect. But some people have said, and probably only half jokingly, that was such a parody that it'd be hard to do a comedy sketch.
How do you do that over, Dave? Really?
Well, you know what? We're ahead of ourselves. So, Brian, the big question would be, and I'll direct it to you first. Why don't you tackle the State of the Union? I assume you watched it, read about it, and followed it. And why don't you lead off tonight with that? So, Brian, my question to you is, what do you think of the State of the Union and Joe Biden?
Well, one thing I've always looked for in any type of candidate, aside from the issues, is the passion that somebody has. If you look at any type of decent actor or actress, you look at a good comedian or comedienne, one of the things you see is that energy. Robin Williams was a stream of consciousness. And by the way, we've discussed this before about Trump when he had the debates in 2015. He had so much more energy, as not obnoxious as he was. He had a lot more energy, and that energy translated very, very well on television. And remember, not everybody in the United States, if not most people, don't really look at the issues from a very academic level. Sometimes they're just noticing certain things and they say, oh, I like the way somebody does that or this or that. And again, it's perception, it's simplified. And what I saw last night was something that I've been waiting for from the Democratic Party for years, and I don't even
liar. You said last night it was Thursday night. Liar.
Okay, I am lying, aren't I? Well, the thing is, it was just what the doctor ordered. I really didn't care what he had to say, although there are some things I'm going to bring up that I think were important that he brought up. But a lot of us think about the whatabouts, we could say, and how I think we all maybe have some type of response in our head, some Walter Mitty kind of thing happening where we would like to respond to things that Lauren Boebert does or what Marjorie Taylor Greene does or Ted Cruz. We get so angry. I mean, you can just imagine people watching the State of the Union and then they see Mike Johnson doing his weird facial gestures, and everybody's saying, what the fuck is with this guy? And we're all kind of the same in that sense, or you wish this would happen or that would happen. And that night, it came through. The very thing that I wanted him to do, he did. And he did fumble a few things here or there. And we knew that the Republicans would be obnoxious. You knew Mike Johnson was going to have a slate of 3 or 4 different looks that he was going to give. And you knew that some of them were going to be purposely on their cell phones and this and that. But we could deal with that. But the fact that he went after them and went after the Supreme Court, that made my day. Because it wasn't a victory in the sense that we won the election, but it's a start. It's a basis in which we can say, okay, this is somewhat of a blueprint on how to deal with this son of a bitch and this party. Because again, the reason why we have this group is because there is no compromise. It's untenable at this point in time with the Republican Party. And that, by the way, a lot of people didn't believe us. Even people who joined the group initially 3.5 years ago had no idea if we were really, this way. And if you think about it, you and I both were, very, very liberal, but we're also pragmatic. We saw this coming. There was no chance we could deal with these people. And we'll talk more about that tonight. But again, Dave, I think if anything could be said about the State of the Union, if the number one thing is that he showed energy. He was not low energy. And that helps inoculate himself from a lot of the criticism that they have about him being old and in dementia. Agree or not?
Oh, absolutely. I think, you can kind of say, we all knew what it was going to be, but after Super Tuesday, it was clear Biden and Trump. And so in a way, this is the week that actually does kick off the campaign for president. And if that's the start, that was a pretty damn good start. His numbers coming out, and again, every week I get less and less impressed by the numbers in the polls, and because they don't count; they're too early. It depends on the type of question they asked. But the first numbers coming out was 60% in favor of his speech. That's his highest numbers for a while. That doesn't mean 60% are going to vote for him, but at this point, so yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He used humor, which is always effective, unless you're a Magite. And then it's not effective at all because they don't have a sense of humor. But the idea, and I don't know if you had a chance to see it yet, he released really the first major ad today. And again, he kind of starts beginning. Yeah, I'm old. He's not going to duck that issue. Yeah, I'm old, but I get things done, and that's one of his messages to kind of get away from that in terms of the age question. And the other one is, yeah, I'm old, but it's not how old you are in terms of age, but how old your ideas are. We're looking to the future, and my opponent is looking to not only to his past, but to America's past to bring us to a place where we shouldn't have been in the first place. And we certainly don't want to be there now. So yeah, overall, good marks. But I'll just pick a few things outside of the. Let me see. Come back to that, Jeff, in a moment. Good question. So let's look at the overall night, both beginning and end. So, it starts out. I don't know if you noticed he was late. Did you notice that?
A few minutes late, yes.
Yeah, you know why?
Yes. I think, wasn't it some people trying to block his motorcade?
Yeah, so we know that's going to be an issue. They were pro-Palestinian.
And that's got to be planned. That's going to be planned, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, but that's not planned by MAGA or Trump.
Right.
No. So that's going to be something. Now, Joe Biden didn't start that war. It's been going on the whole 72 years I've been on the planet, the Middle East crisis with Israel centered in it. But I have to believe that it will end prior to the election. It may not. I mean, it may not. But
even if it doesn't, it's going to wane. I mean, at some point, even wars kind of,
yes,
people get used to it, like Ukraine, as much as it's brutal there.
Well, we already know from the primary in Michigan that there will be some impact in the Arab American community. Obviously, I know, I live, as people who watch the show all the time know, I live in Crystal City, 3 metro stops from DC, in a twin tower type apartment complex. And we have quite a few foreign students here, either foreign students, graduate students for the most part, or people who are just starting out in government. And a number of pro-Palestinians here, young people. And so Biden's going to have to deal with that. But I would ask anyone who is pro-Palestinian one simple question. Do you think the Palestinians will be better off with Donald Trump than they are with Joe Biden? I mean, that's the question. That's the question. That's the only question. I mean, there's no other question.
I think you already answered, because it's basically one of these questions you really do know the answer to.
Right.
And if they don't know that answer, then they've got a problem.
Now, again, as we speak, I would assume that one of the independents, Robert Kennedy or Cornel West or Jill Stein, will pick up the Palestinian issue as a grabber, right? But then my question would be, are they going to win? That's the question. You could vote for them.
They're irrelevant. They're irrelevant right now, unless they steal 2,000 votes and they run against Biden, which would be the dream of Donald Trump, for them to do that.
Yeah. So we know that that's going to be an issue. All right. So even before the State of the Union, but it didn't rattle him. Okay. I mean, it said, I think they had a sign that stretched all the way across Pennsylvania. I mean, it said Biden's legacy is genocide or something like that.
Well, see, that kind of ignorance is, this is why people have to understand what the real big problem is. And that's just, do we have democracy or not? That's the number one issue right now.
And I think that will be framed that way between now and the November vote. Now, interesting enough, I've never heard of this before. I've been around a while. Your favorite little tiny politician for Louisiana, Mike Johnson, who's speaker, he had to call a meeting and urge Republican officials to cool it, to show civility. Didn't work. Obviously, didn't work, and it's not going to.
And
but
nor
he,
did we
had to do that.
expect them to show civility.
Well,
because he himself showed incivility in the way he responded to each.
Well, what's funny about that? I mean, I don't really care what the minority does on camera. I don't get locked in. The only time he stood was when they honored John Lewis. That was the only time the man stood the whole night, and that's okay. He's of the other party. But what I found interesting, when he was attacked the next day, his office put out a statement saying, quote, "The speaker remains standing through the speech." Let me do that again. His office put out an official statement saying that he stood during the entire speech. No. If he did, he's the shortest man in America. He should redo the Munchkins. He did not stand. Why they consistently have to lie about everything?
Everything. Why
not just say, I didn't stand because I didn't agree with what the president was saying? That's fine. Okay. But no, they have to turn it into a lie. So it does a couple things to his position. He's unable to control his party. I don't know if anyone could. The renegades in his party. And he also now is, unless he didn't know the office put out that statement, which I find it hard to believe, he's also a liar. So it was a good night for Mr. Johnson. It also wasn't a real good night for your favorite disgraced Congressman, George Santos. Did you see Georgie? He was there.
It was shocking just to see him there. I forgot that he technically can show up or something like that. That's just
correct. And do you know who he was? He was sitting next to.
Was it one of the two?
No, it was. Well, they were all kind of together, but it was Matt Gaetz. And anyway, Santos was there. He's saying he's going to run again. Well,
In what district?
He'll move in New York and move to another district.
He might have to move to Texas.
Well, I don't even know if he'll get elected in Texas. Actually, the Democrats are going to bring up this week, next week, I should say, the George rule. I thought this is really clever. George is an acronym for Getting Expelled Officially Revokes Guest Entry. Right now, there's no ruling. We're finding out really, I guess, overall, this is just one example of how many, I don't even want to say loopholes, how many holes there are in government rules. I mean, Supreme Court, no ethics. Not only do they have any ethics, they don't even have any rulings on ethics. So that George Santos, he was sitting there smiling. He's shameless. He's terrible, but he is a MAGA and an epitome of the MAGA candidates. But of course, the real epitome, and they battle back and forth, is your girl, Lauren Boebert, and your other girl, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, it was clear. We know that Johnson warned them, right? Warned all of them in the party. And
as if he has any type of pull.
Well, I know. But Miss Greene, of course,
imagine that warning.
Disregarded it. And it is not only inappropriate, it's supposedly illegal to wear campaign paraphernalia on the floor of Congress. Well, she shows up with her MAGA hat and the red and the say her name, and of course she shouts out, and she did not really behave herself well. But that shouldn't surprise us. I don't know if you caught it early in the week. I don't know if it was BBC. It wasn't BBC. It was one of the foreign news agencies. Got her pigeonholed and said, was asking her different questions, and she was answering. And then finally she said, what about the Jewish space lasers? If you remember when she first came, and she gave a pretty, why don't you fuck off? Well, look, you can say whatever you want. I don't get upset about wording, but somebody's going to do that is certainly not going to be appropriate for the floor. So we don't expect that. No surprise there. Your other girl, Lauren Boebert, responding to Johnson's request, said, I don't even promise my pastor I'm going to hold back in church. Well, she certainly was holding something. I think it's called a penis in the Beetlejuice play. She saw. Now, real decorum, you can see it, and you didn't see it that night with the Republicans. Now, what'll be interesting to me was what reaction will the Democrats have if indeed the tragedy happens that Donald Trump does win. If he gives the next State of the Union, do you fight fire with fire when it's really? I don't know. I don't know what you do.
Well, my concern is actually before the election, because if the polls, I think that the type of person that Trump is, Dave, he is so insecure about himself and what will possibly happen. Remember, he was asked before the election with Hillary Clinton, what would he do if he lost? Would he challenge this and that? And he's always mentioning how he would challenge things. Again, as I said last week, I think that he and the party, meaning the Republican Party, or whatever you want to call it, are probably actively planning to steal the election.
Well, yes.
Even if they wouldn't, I mean, they have to have plans in case. He has to, because he's afraid that first of all, if he doesn't win this time, he's not waiting another 4 years. He may not even live another 4 years. So this is serious, where we as Democrats, everybody has to be, on the lookout.
We have three groups with some subdivisions. You have the Republican Party, which is now Trump's party.
Yes.
That's it. Very few others hanging on. Even people that you didn't like, Sinema became an independent. She's dropping out. Mitt Romney's
thankfully
not going to run. Manchin's done.
Good.
So I mean, you really don't have any middle ground. I mean, the Senate is going to be MAGA. The House is going to be MAGA. whether they're in the minority or the majority. You have that. Now, what I thought was interesting is the reaction of two of your favorite broadcasters, Jesse Waters and Sean Hannity. Their follow-ups. So I always wait for them because I like to hear what they have to say. I honestly
Did you actually watch them?
I refuse. I watch them in clips. I will not watch Fox
okay.
News.
Good for you.
But the idea was they both came up with the same thing. Now, they for months have been Sleepy Joe, Dementia Joe, Feeble Joe. Well, now what are they going to say? He wasn't any of those things. Well, they came up with an answer. Do you know what they came up with?
Tell me.
They said that the President of the United States was on drugs, either amphetamine, cocaine, Adderall, or some other speed. Really? I mean,
maybe
look,
it would be called a vitamin, maybe?
No, it was one of the things that Biden has been able to do, and they said he can kind of read a room and feed on energy. Any of us, in a classroom, you feed off energy. And that was a big night for him. He knew what he had to do, and he went about doing it. The only thing I wish he hadn't done, but it in the long run, it doesn't matter. I wish he had pronounced Laken Riley's name correctly. But it doesn't matter because her parents are MAGA. So it doesn't really matter, But it did give her the opening to say the president didn't know my daughter's name. In fact, she did it tonight in Georgia. Anyway, but that was not, the speech, State of the Union, as important as that was, you also get a second one, which is the response to the State of the Union. And that is something we've never seen before. Earlier, some of our people were putting it up on there. Katie Britt, the junior senator from Alabama. Have you watched any of that? Or
I did watch about 5 or 6 minutes. I have it queued up if we need to watch it.
No. I don't think anybody needs to see it. I think if you need to see it, there'll be a good version on Saturday Night Live. A lot of people are saying it'll be the cold opening. I don't know if it'll be the cold opening, but they'll have to do something with it. I mean, it was clear. It's not the most bizarre speech that I've seen by a Republican woman. That would go to Donnie Jr.'s girlfriend at the nominating convention. Remember when she screamed and hollered? And, yeah, that was the worst. But this was bad. Now, they talk a thing about being tone deaf. I think this was a tone deaf speech. Obviously, I think what the Republicans were trying for is to shore up a weakness they have, which is suburban women or women in general. But it didn't work, which I'm glad it didn't. First of all, they put her in a kitchen. A woman in a kitchen. A woman's place is, in the kitchen. No. And the kitchen was fairly modern and kind of out there. I mean, it wasn't like anybody else's kitchen. It wasn't like, but she whispered and then she cried. And
Gary says she only became a senator because she cared about her kids. I mean, she was the most insincere.
Well, yes.
Politician. I mean, most politicians are insincere, but she really, again, I could show you this, but it's just horrific.
Well, I think a few things that we can talk about that came out of it. Now, again, there's almost nothing you can talk about politics today and know that it's true. You just don't know. But there are pretty solid reports out there that originally a large number of GOP wanted Vivek Ramaswamy to deliver the post-State of the Union. Yes, aging hippie, you're right. A lot of people said Stepford Wives, and a lot of people said one of the characters in A Handmaid's Tale. But according to these reports, Mitch McConnell pulled rank and got Katie Britt in as speaker. Now, I don't know if that's true. It's not something that, that necessarily, but it kind of rings that it could be true because, McConnell's last act, they would have been chosen before he decided to step down.
Her husband's a former NFL football player. I think he played for either Seahawks or the Patriots. I forget.
Yeah. So the sad thing is, after all that, she also either misunderstood or lied or false led. I mean, there is a difference between falsely leading and lying. It's a very thin line,
it's all affectation. I mean, it was just,
but the thing was, she talked about that sex trafficked 12-year-old,
right, which
indicating, it's not a lie.
It's not like it happened a long time before she said it. It had nothing to do with it.
It happened in 2004 during the George W. Bush administration
in Mexico.
In Mexico, never any border crossings. Now, she claims that she's met with this woman. So she had, again, we know, just like we know that Palestine's going to be an issue, immigration is going to be a huge issue. This week, in some analysis, some of MSNBC's people, including Rachel Maddow, I forget who else, kind of poo-pooed and made fun of, and it sounds kind of funny, that the number one issue in Virginia was immigration. And, they said, they kind of think, well, why is, and then one of them, I don't know which one said, or three, one of them said, yeah, but, they are next to West Virginia. So, of course, that sparks. But at this point, yeah, if you're a red state, the majority of you are not anybody I want to associate with, not anybody I believe in. I don't care what you say about them. It's time because they are completely wrong.
Can I ask you this, Dave, real quick? You mentioned, issues that would come up, and with the issue with females and how suburban women will look at the candidates. In the end, it's still going to come down to those swing states. You would agree on that, right?
I've named them. We can go through them
again tonight. These issues like abortion, they're really big, and they do generate more votes for Biden, obviously. But again, I think Trump says, I know which states Biden is going to win, and I know which states that I'm going to win, meaning Trump, despite all the abortion issues in the Supreme Court or whatever, they're still going to vote for Trump. But we go again to those swing states, and there's anything he knows is going to be close. This is, again, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, but this is why I don't even think it matters the issue. I think it's going to be close enough because there aren't too many undecided people. I mean, if they are, then they're pretty screwed up as it is. That there is going to be such malfeasance in this. I know this wasn't the topic of tonight, but
no, it's
when you
related.
Smell a rat, you smell it, and you said yourself, they're all lying now. They'll lie till they're blue in the face. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. This is going to be, I think, the issue is what they are going to do between now and then after then.
Of course, then we have to look at, as I say, I think I consider this week the kickoff of the campaign. So it'll be the longest campaign, probably, in modern political times. I did learn an interesting fact, if anybody wants to. This is the first time where two candidates will meet again, Biden and Trump, since 1956, when Eisenhower and Adlai Stevenson went head-to-head. The difference is, while Trump won against Hillary and Biden won against Trump, Dwight Eisenhower defeated Adlai Stevenson twice, both in 52 and 56. Another thing I learned, I'd heard about it, but I actually was doing just when I saw that, it was kind of fascinating. I'd heard that the Democrats, both parties, wanted Eisenhower. Now, think about that one candidate, because they knew he was a war hero. He was, the most popular man in America. He was kind of the male Taylor Swift, or, of his time.
And you could understand that given World War II and what had
right. Oh, exactly. And it was a different world. Republicans were different, Democrats were different. But Harry Truman, I did not know this. Harry Truman agreed to run for vice president if Eisenhower would run as a Democrat. Fairly interesting.
Right,
okay?
That is interesting.
So, we'll never see that again because people can't cross parties. They just couldn't.
Well, if you are someone like Manchin, you certainly can. That's for sure. And I still think, looks like he's out, but
And the last thing I will say about Miss Britt would be, the irony, I suppose, which is a Republican byword now. She worked on the immigration bill.
Right.
Then she spends a lot of the time, like the Republicans, attacking immigration. And then she voted to kill the bipartisan border bill that she worked on. And one Alabama reporter said he was very disappointed in her because, they were looking at her, as you would in your state, to help. And he said, she's done a few things, and apparently she's fairly bright, and she is photogenic, a little bit over the top.
Right.
But she chose not to. It's like, because it's Trump's party. Now, two issues come out of there. Number one, her name was mentioned a lot as a possible vice presidential candidate that Trump would select. I think she's killed any possibility of that with that speech, I would think. However, Trump's backers will back him if he picks up Charles Manson. They're still going to back him. So,
right.
It's totally his call. If I had to bet, we've gone back and forth. It'll either be a total surprise or Stefanik or Noam.
I think, well, he's very much into looks too. I mean,
yes,
he sees it as a show. So while one would think, well, maybe he'll go for Stefanik because she defends him right to the end, unless he thinks she can pull votes to win New York, which is not going to happen. He's going to go, I think, what he feels is the most attractive of them all. And that's it, just on looks.
Yeah, I think that, again, though he likes surprises, so who knows? I mean, Donald Trump, if nothing, is erratic. I mean, you can say that about him.
Yeah, and you can see with his stream of consciousness how it's just not normal human behavior. And he goes from one thing to the next, and he is somewhat desperate. Unless, again, I think it has to do with the Supreme Court. Unless, I've been thinking that he treats the Supreme Court like a zoning board, and
well, he treats everything like that, and that's Trump. Now, I think it's interesting tonight that before we went on the air, both candidates for the second time. Remember, they both went to Texas at the border the same day. They're now both in Georgia, but two very different places that kind of capture the difference between the party. Trump was holding a rally in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, and Biden was holding a rally in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. What they said, I haven't listened to all of it, but I've listened to parts of it, pretty much the same greatest hits of what's happening. One of the good things about, I think, Biden tonight, he was getting 3 endorsements from 3 different groups dealing with minorities, and they're pledging to spend quite a bit of money to energize and enervate the minority vote. And of course, they need that. So of course, Atlanta is a good place to go in Georgia. You mentioned before the states. Let's see if we can add into them. If I were looking at the election, I'm going to choose Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, possibly Wisconsin.
I don't think he has to worry about Ohio. He's going to win Ohio.
I think so, but
But he'll still be there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then, of course, Nevada and Arizona. They're the states. I mean,
right.
That will matter. Now, Trump, one thing, and he doesn't disguise, he wants to be the ultimate boss who no one can say no to. That's what he wants to be. And see, unfortunately, Brian, he's been able to do that in his life as a businessman. Nobody said no to him. Right. He couldn't have been as bad as he was.
People around.
He couldn't have destroyed shit if he listened to everybody. There was somebody just recently posted, I think it was 18 businesses that he's put up that have failed. From Trump Steaks to Trump University to 3 casinos, and the list goes on and on and on. But he, Mar-a-Lago is his home. And again, I don't like to make fun of people's appearances, but man, some of those women down there, they have really kept the plastic surgeons in business. I mean, they're scary, Botox on top of Botox on top of lips. But anyway, by the way, did you know, Brian, you probably didn't, that one of the hostesses Mar-a-Lago, if you will, is from Bridgeton.
I did not know that.
Our home, yes. Her name, I forget her married name now, but her husband's very well-to-do out of New York, and he and Trump have been buds for a long time. And
I do know this. I remember working the relays, and a former gym teacher, she used to be the supervisor in my department for a little bit of time. You'll know who that is. I think her daughter worked there at one time in Mar-a-Lago.
Could have been.
Now, well, either that or she knew somebody that worked there. Yeah. But
it was just funny. But in keeping with Donald Trump and what you said about looking good and that kind of thing, this particular young lady, I knew her growing up, and she would have what Trump would call nice chesties. She was a well-endowed young lady, and I'm sure she still is.
You don't know who this was who worked. You just know she was from Bridgeton.
Right. Yes. And to answer T-Bone's question, dictator fantasy, it is clearly. Now, you say, well, wait a minute. I mean, somebody would say, well, Dave, come on, you're wrong. No. Who came to see Trump, the last visitor at Mar-a-Lago? Viktor
Orban,
the leader of Hungary. Now,
another demagogue.
Now, listen to what Trump said. This was his quote. There's nobody that's better, smarter, or a better leader than Viktor Orban. He says, this is the way it is. It's going to be, and that's the end of it. He's the boss. That is the presidency that Trump wants to establish, will try to establish. Tonight, unlike you, we can have dinner parties and not have to miss the whole show. But hey, we'll get into that later. We're here, and I was talking to someone who retired a while ago from the National Park Service here in D.C. And we're just kind of smiling because, if you remember correctly, the first group to come out against Trump was the National Park Society very early on when he first came in, because he doesn't want national parks. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. Trump is floating the dictator name. And Jeff, I'm going to tell you, I believe this with all my heart, that anybody who is MAGA tonight would welcome him as dictator. Mm-hmm. They don't care. That's part of the problem. I mean, nothing will affect them. Interesting article I read this week, very insightful, said you have two options. One is he has 91 charges against him. Mm-hmm. Normal people would say with 91 charges, there must be something there, right? There must be. No, MAGA and the people coming said, no, that's overkill. There's nothing there. That's too much. And they're siding with him. So,
Dave, can I want to
sure.
It's a very short clip, but it relates to exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I wanted to show you this.
Go ahead.
Because part of the reason why they act the way they do is everything they think is in terms of partisanship. If you think the economy is doing well, they'll think that it's doing poorly simply because they're part of this group. Okay, I'm going to shut down some noise here. Okay, hopefully this will come up. You'll tell me if it
okay.
If it plays, but I think it's important enough to show. It's only a minute or two, a couple minutes maybe.
Okay.
Oh, for God's sakes.
The rocket equation. It's a beautiful thing.
I hope I don't get a strike on this
because launches for space with their fingers.
Can you hear the volume by any chance?
That's not how
Okay, we're good then.
We don't agree on anything anymore. Even facts now are a matter of opinion. Everything is colored red or blue. So we decided to conduct a little social experiment. We sent a camera crew to South Carolina ahead of the primary there tomorrow. We asked people who identified themselves as supporters of Donald Trump for their take on some of Joe Biden's more controversial actions and quotes. But what we didn't tell them at first is that what we said wasn't from Joe Biden. It was actually from Donald Trump.
Do you mind if I ask you who you voted for in the last election?
Trump.
Trump? I'm going to guess you voted for Trump.
It says Donald Trump.
Do you mind if I just ask you a few questions about things that Biden has done in his administration, and you can kind of give me your opinion on that? What did you think when Joe Biden suggested that COVID could be cured by shining a bright light inside the body?
It is very sad that Joe Biden is clearly a dementia patient.
Supposedly we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light.
What do you think about Joe Biden saying that getting through the 80s without getting HIV was his own personal Vietnam?
Again, it's very sad, his mental capacity, and that is a very uneducated statement.
Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. These are not, I got my notes mixed up. Can I ask you this question? Can we start over and me ask you? Okay. What did you think when Donald Trump suggested that COVID could be cured by shining a bright light into the body?
It depends what that technology is.
Okay.
Whoa.
That's a broad spectrum because, you have MRI machines and CT machines and infrared and different things. So it just depends the context of that.
What did you think of Donald Trump saying that getting through the 80s without getting HIV was his own personal Vietnam? Dementia patient?
No, I don't believe that.
There are accusations that Joe Biden cheated on his wife with a porn star after his son was born. And there's actually a paper trail showing he paid the sex worker $130,000 to keep quiet about it.
Well, who did that? Joe
Biden.
And he was making, I think, less than $100,000 a year at that time as a congressman. A senator. And how does he do that?
You tell me. Would you
You're
vote for someone that...
Of course not.
Okay. So Trump did do that.
Trump had a fling with Stormy Daniels.
And paid her $130,000.
Hush money, yes.
And you're voting for him.
I am. My father had affairs too, and I still respect him.
How do you feel about Joe Biden using his bone spurs to dodge the Vietnam draft?
Joe Biden has a problem. He isn't an American. He isn't a patriot.
I'm sorry. I asked you, I said Biden and I meant Trump. So those were things that...
Oh, Trump?
Trump, yes. Can I ask you the question again with the right name? I'm so sorry. How do you feel about Donald Trump using his bone spurs to dodge the Vietnam draft?
My brother-in-law had flat feet. So I'm sure you cannot go into a military zone, a Vietnam zone, or any of the other zones with bad feet.
Sure.
You just can't do the job.
I agree.
And it actually...
I'm going to stop there, Dave, and go back. See,
nothing left to be
but
said.
It does, illuminate the point about Republicans because they certainly are so partisan. No matter what the issue, no matter what the facts are,
what I find really,
they are going to support them.
What I find so disturbing for me, and this is just a personal disturbance, it's not for anybody else. My father and family's from Texas on my father's side, so that's Southern. So I had Southern roots. My two grandchildren, along with our son and daughter-in-law, have lived in Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama. So I've spent quite a bit of my time over the years in the South. And the Southern people are really nice. I mean, they even look at those. Nice people just lose it. They just lose it.
She's just telling me I should, stop it and make commentary.
Yeah.
During it, and maybe I won't get a strike with that.
But what happens, is we know. Now, I'm not to say the Democrats don't lie; they're not perfect, but we just have this going on. And the hypocrisy. Tonight, I asked you a question. There was one place in Georgia at 5 p.m. where you could not have a gun. Any idea where that was?
5 p.m. when?
Today. You could not. It's the only place in Georgia.
I'll just say this. I don't know where, but I assume it's wherever Trump was. You couldn't have.
That is correct. I wonder if
hypocrisy.
I wonder if Marjorie Taylor Greene left her gat at home. Lauren Boebert wouldn't, but she would. Now, something I do want to kind of warn people, and I would urge anyone who's watching to just go and I don't know. You can find them online. We've talked before, and we'll do continually again. the danger of AI. There were a few things that circulated this week, but the big one was, and I don't know if you had a chance to see them, there are two pictures out there. One is Trump and a group of black young men, and the other is Trump and a group of black young women. They're AI generated. They're not real. I mean, they're just not. But people won't believe, if they're, given the Trumpites we did, how do they, and it's interesting. How, if they are pretty much Southern, a lot of them poor, white, steeped in racism, generations back. But Trump's trying to, but they'll accept that. Once Trump says something, they accept it, even if it goes against everything they know. And global solidarity, AI is here to stay until if we get to the Terminator, and then we might not be able to stay. But that's something we can go on forever. But AI, I feel safe in saying AI is going to play a big role in this election. Now, in the primaries, to finish off with Trump for tonight, Nikki Haley won 2 primaries, Vermont and Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. Now, there are 700,000 people, give or take, in the District of Columbia in Washington. Of that, Trump got 676 votes. That was it, in a city of 700,000. Now, it is heavily Democratic. I understand all that. But what is interesting, Brian, and this is scary a little bit, his attorneys are already using that. This is how quickly they can jump on. Using that as rationale for moving to a different venue to hold any DC trials that come up with Donald Trump. So, and again, we were talking before about polls, to be careful. One of the things I really disagreed with, the New York Times did it, Washington Post did it. I wouldn't have let it be in the paper, but they were doing a comparison of, I don't know if you saw, Biden's amount of votes, or percentage of votes, and Trump's, and Biden beat one in every place. But that's not accurate, because whether it's Washington, D.C. with 700,000, Democrats, there probably is. I would guess if there's 700,000, probably at least 650,000 Democrats in Washington, D.C. And I used the example tonight. I was talking to someone. I said, look, if you had a little community that had 10 voters and Joe Biden got 9 of them, he'd have a rating of 90%. But say Trump got 15%, but got 40,000 votes. So just 2 things to be wary, everybody, and pass them along to anyone you can. Watch for AI, if it's just to make sure, and then watch polls. I don't think they do a service. And now we're a little quick. We may run over tonight because we've got so much, but I really don't care. Just some quick things that are in the news, some names in the news that kind of shed a light again on divided we stand as a country and Trump and Biden. So we're back to your girl, Lauren Boebert. She has now proposed a bill, gives it a cute little name, Build the Wall and Deport Them All. That's her bill. Of course, that makes Trump extremely happy. The nice thing is, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Lauren Boebert will not be in the next Congress. I don't see it happening. We've talked about that before, but basically she left her district because it was a really strong Democratic challenger. She's in another district where she's polling 3rd in the Republican primary. So maybe the days of Lauren Boebert are done. I know that ruins your fantasy life, but maybe you can catch her at a local bar somewhere or something. Again, if you want a nepotism, I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you did. We now have new co-chairs of the Republican National Committee. One is Michael Whatley, who is one of the leading election deniers in the country. And the other has a last name that's somewhat familiar, Trump, Laura Trump, who is what? Yeah, she's so Trump is everywhere. Trump is controlling it. Now, remember we were talking earlier about Trump and trying to get black people. The round mound of rebound, one of my favorite basketball players of all time, Charles Barkley, who actually is from Alabama. He was on a show this week and said if he sees a black person walking around with a Trump shirt, he's going to punch him in the face. And that's something Charles would say. But do you know what? It's interesting. Charles was a Republican.
Yes, he certainly was.
He was considering running for governor as a Republican. And then, of course, again, with AI generated, they had a picture then of Mike Tyson wearing a Trump arrest photo with the big not guilty under there. And try that on, Charles. Again, people are going to look at that and there's just so many, there's all these shirts with no, Michelle Obama didn't wear it. They're just dumbing anything up. I mean, on both sides. I'm not saying that's solely, and to where the loser is truth. It is really hard right now to know what is true. Another name back in the news, your senator, Bob Menendez. Did you see?
He's another, this is why, Dave, I can just say, this is what really bothers me about Democrats is that, we see what goes on in the Republican Party, and then all of a sudden we get this crap, whether it's Ozzie Myers or that lunatic Tricofant or whatever his name was from
Traficante, yeah.
Traficant. And then this crap with Menendez trying to, and now's the time where we have to be squeaky clean. You don't pull that crap. And he continually does this. He's got to go.
I take it from that. You don't have gold bars in your refrigerator? Bars of gold?
The only gold I have is my wedding ring, and that's it.
Okay.
Wedding band. That's it.
Well, yeah. And in the damned if you do and damned if you don't, in New York City, did you see what they did with the subways this week?
Yes, they called the National Guard, which I understand. It was a Democratic governor who did that.
Correct. Now, the charge, of course, from Trump and MAGAs is, Democrats aren't hard on crime. But now they've changed their tune and saying that was uncalled for. Now, wait a minute. You said the city...
Yeah, because they might call the National Guard on them one time,
Well, what's interesting is...
Which I think might be a good idea. That's another
the two states that they often pick are New York and California, which are the most Democratic states or have the most Democratic voters. But Oklahoma, which is a red state, actually has a higher crime rate.
Right.
Than that. And immigrants, we've
and
kind
by
of
the way, the Bible Belt has higher divorce rates in general than the rest of the country.
Yeah. So there's just some names in the news. But my new favorite
politician?
New favorite politician I have, and it kind of ties into Trump and the black vote, is the current Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson. Okay, here's just a little bit about, these are some of the things that Mark Robinson has said. They can't be denied. They're on video. This is one you will like, Brian. The foolishness about Hitler disarming millions of Jews and marching them off to concentration camp is a bunch of hogwash.
So in other words, you have all these train schedules and lines, a true genocide where they, by the minute, having schedules to kill people, and this guy doesn't even understand that.
Correct. Now, in a party that obviously using Katie Britt is trying to do something with women, correct? That's a weakness that they know. Here's what their candidate for governor of North Carolina says, the Republican candidate, Mark Robinson, who, for anybody who doesn't know him, he is black, and it does enter into this. I'll tell you why in a moment. Absolutely. I want to go back to an America when women couldn't vote. He missed the Norman Vincent, he missed all those how to win friends and influence people, Dale Carnegie and all those things, right? Well, it doesn't stop there. Just a smattering. We go on all night, but just some of his greatest hits. He thinks Beyonce is satanic. He says mass shootings are karma for abortion. He says he's called school shooting victims prostitutes. He thinks the moon landing was fake. He's called 9/11 an inside job. And in my personal favorite, which now leads me to why I select him as my new favorite politician, he thinks the lizard people are real. This is a man who's already won as lieutenant governor. Now, North Carolina, come on, be real. You've got Duke. You've got the Research Triangle down there. You've got great North Carolina, University of North Carolina. So hopefully, calm heads will prevail. All that's fine, but Donald Trump, at a rally for Mr. Robinson, said, and I quote, I'm going to do this twice because it's something that I think everyone should point out to any black friends they have. This is what Donald Trump says about Mark Robinson. This, and he points to him, this is Martin Luther King on steroids. In fact, you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you're Martin Luther King times 2. Let me do that again. Pointing to Mr. Robinson. This is Martin Luther King on steroids. You're better than Martin Luther King. I think you're Martin Luther King times 2. What are you going to do?
Well, it's certainly not
why.
Funny. It's sickening.
How can any black person back Mr. Robinson, but how can any white person or anybody understanding think that this guy is better than Martin Luther King? I mean,
anybody's capable of anything in any race. It's just.
I know. Well, because it's if we had a theme tonight, it's the everything's wrong with the Republican Party. Everything.
Absolutely everything. Now, not everything is right with the Democratic Party. Right.
Not everything is right with Joe Biden.
Right.
But in any head-to-head competition, those that I know and those that I don't, I would go with the Democratic candidate every single time, whether it was the local zoning board all the way to the President of the United States. If we don't, we're at a chance to lose democracy. Now, last thing I want to talk about just briefly is the Supreme Court ruling, because I think this is important in this sense. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that Trump could not be taken off the ballot for insurrection, for being an insurrectionist in Colorado. And I'm sure there'll be people tonight and people other places where we will question this. Why would this? But I'm not that upset with that ruling. I'm really not. Because I think to rule that he could would open it up for any state, any time.
It doesn't matter. They are with him. They are with him.
I'm not saying they're not.
And whether you think it's right or not.
Well, but the only thing is you can't do. I mean, again, we will know how with them they are when they hear.
And it will be the same way. It'll be no different than Bruce Schrader.
No, it won't. Immunity will not be 9-0. It will not be 9-0.
Not be 9-0. It will be 6-3 or 5-4.
No, I'm gonna go. It will be 5-4 minimally.
And we lose.
No, I'm gonna say we're gonna win the immunity. If we don't, we've lost the Supreme Court for 3 generations.
Absolutely.
That's how important. And maybe Clarence Thomas will, in a moment, take John Oliver's offer of $1 million a year for life.
Well, or maybe Biden will think, well, if that's the case where I have immunity, well, I'm going to arrest 6 Supreme Court justices and put them in prison.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah. And that, of course, Joe Biden wouldn't do that. And again, the old thing, what is it? Be careful when you stare into the abyss and evil, because it is staring back into you. And I think that's one of the things the Democrats have, they want to be the good guys, and they are in this case.
Right. Now, how are we going to deal with them? That's what I'm saying. Look, we have to vote and we have to put them out. But
I think there's some things that I would suggest. One is if you're going to contribute campaign money, if you are, and you live in a state, I'll use my son and daughter-in-law for example. They live in Alabama. Their state
Not
senator.
Good place.
Yeah, although Michael raised an interesting point the other day. He said, I get mad. He said got mad at us. He said, because everybody puts down Alabama and not every Alabama is bad. I know that.
We understand that. But in general, it's a bad state.
Right. But what happens is, for all Katie Britt's failings this week, she's the best senator that they have, because the worst senator in the United States Senate right now is Tommy Tuberville. Yeah. No question about that. So I think what I would suggest people do, say for them, if they want to contribute money, don't contribute it to Alabama unless you got a local race, because they live in Tuscaloosa, and actually Tuscaloosa is Democrat.
I would
which is
believe that. Because the major cities would probably.
Yeah, because but
And I would imagine a lot of that is because of the African American vote.
Some that's somewhat true, and they have the university,
and they have the right.
And they also have, interesting enough, they have, they're relatively progressive in terms of comparing it to Alabama. I mean, that's a relative term.
Right. It's university town.
But I would say, if someone asked me if they lived in a state like New York or California, I wouldn't contribute money to them. I would send it. I would send it to Pennsylvania, or you send it to Biden as a national candidate, or you send it. A state that I'm going to send money to is Montana, because I think it's very important.
I sent to Georgia last time. I'll do that again.
I did that also because of John Tester. Now, Brian, there were some questions coming up, and we didn't get to them.
Not too many of them tonight.
Can you recall them?
Interplay. I don't really think there are too many questions.
I think there were one or two I wanted to come back to, some early ones.
I got one question about sports. Did Charles Barkley ever hit a three-pointer? I'm sure he has.
Was it 3-point there when
he wasn't a bad, terrible outside shooter. I mean, he did go inside, but can we AI Stormy and Dave asking?
Well, let me say something. If you do, there is, ladies and gentlemen, I honestly say that the only thing that Donald Trump and I share in common is we've both been with Stormy when she had nothing on. He was, she's admitted to that, and we'll know more come March 25th, the day before my birthday, when the Stormy Daniels Donald Trump trial starts. Mine was in a gentleman's club here, and Stormy did indeed sit on my lap. So there are existing pictures of that. Unfortunately, I couldn't get them because there's a provision that you cannot shoot photos in that particular gentleman's club, which is kind of good because, if you're not supposed to be there, you don't want to. But what happened, I came home and told my wife, and I said, I'm never washing these pants. When I woke up the next morning, those pants were in the...
Yeah, I'm sure Judy wanted to get them out of there.
Yes, and that's... There we are, global. I mean, again, look, Trump has no use for any of the leaders of democratic nations. It's Putin, it's... Rocket Man in North Korea. It's Jing in China.
By the way, I was listening to commentary from a Russian woman today. I speak with her, and she loves Putin, and she started rattling off about how Obama murdered hundreds of thousands of people, and he started something like 20 wars.
You know what? I could understand. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying it was absurdity.
But I can understand. But I can understand that in Russia. Okay, news is controlled. The lies are there. What I can't understand.
They'll look at Wikipedia and say, "Well, we were in Syria, but we were doing some strategic this or that, and it wasn't a war."
I don't get. I can understand that. What I can't understand is beliefs like that in America, and that's what we have. That's the problem. But I think, yes, Trucker John, go back to Trucker John's. Mm-hmm. That's something new. Now we're gonna have to pay attention to that. I've been in Miss Daniels. I talked to her. She's sitting naked on my lap. Told her I loved her, but I was married, and we couldn't
so close, but yet so far, right?
Wasn't so far.
And you were actually probably thinking about it, right? Like. Just
no.
Another...
No. We were, there, but no. And then I heard her speak when her book came out at a bookstore here, Politics and Prose. And I'm a little concerned because she is kind of changing her story a little bit now to indicate that it wasn't consensual. She never brought that up. That's like something new.
It doesn't really work very well in the courts.
No, so we'll have to see how that plays out.
Let's see what TJ said here.
Okay, let's go. Okay, I admit I've been sharply critical of Democrats in recent times. Who are they? What do they stand for? What's the idea here? What's their sort of theory of the world of a just society? T-Bone, you probably won't agree with my answer, and that's fine. I know enough about you to know that you're extremely intelligent and you're very thoughtful. But my thing is, I'm not so worried about that because I know it's not Trump's worldview. And what I'm worried about right now is if Donald Trump wins the presidency, we have no more democracy.
Think about what the past with the Democrats. The Democrats gave us Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the work programs, the unions. Everything that we fought for came through the Democratic Party and not through the Republican Party. I'm not talking about recent. I'm just saying in general.
No,
the Republican Party, T-Bone, has never done anything for the working man. What they'll just tell you is that we keep your taxes low, and in the end, they don't keep the taxes lower. So
and like I said, I mean,
right now, if anything good has happened, it has happened through the Democratic Party.
And I'm not even going to say that, although I agree with it. I'm just saying right now, tonight, there's only one candidate worth voting for.
By far.
Now, are they faultless? No. Are they better? Are Democrats better for America and democracy? And the question you will have to ask, are they better for you? Are they better for your friends? Money, global, it's the misstated biblical quote, money is the root of all evil.
But can I put it this way, global, is that, we can, you can find warts on all of the parties. But, even the people who are in the climate change movement, I'll bet you half of them probably light fires in their fireplace, or they add to pollution in the air, or they don't turn the lights off soon enough. And I'm not trying to be critical, but I'm saying all of us can't throw stones. We just can't. And you have to look in a pragmatic fashion. I get it. But if you're looking for a clean slate, it's not going to happen. And it.
If I were an environmentalist, 100%, that was my issue. I didn't care about anything else. I would look to the Green Party, right? And Jill Stein.
But would you live it? Would you be?
My point is,
you wouldn't be eating red meat or meat in general if you were a true environmentalist.
I'm not even.
I'm not talking about you, Dave. I'm just saying.
I know.
The environmentalist movement. If you're going to talk, you got to walk the walk, and they don't always do it either.
Well, I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about is that my vote will lead to Donald Trump's election. Any vote that's not for Joe Biden has a chance. To lead to what I consider to be the worst thing that could happen to America in 2024 would be thank you. That's very kind. One thing, Trev, if you're going to do that, I think, you need to talk about, what's good about the show. So the way I look at it is Brian Weinstein is the Katie Britt of Divided We Stand, and I'm the Stormy Daniels. So that's the difference between the two. That's the difference. That's the difference between.
For that and rotate. No, okay, I'm just kidding.
Well, what would Dave do if he were dictator for a day? Wow. Okay, Global. I'm not ducking the question. What I'd like to do. Brian, would you jot that down? Be my secretary. You don't do anything else. Or make sure we have the question. I'd like to start the show next week with that. That is a really fascinating question, and I could do it off the top of my head, which you might want. But I'd like to give that a little thought, because I think you have to look at things that are realistic that you could do. What I hope we don't find is we don't find out what Donald Trump would do if he, because he's already said, I'll be dictator for a day. Let's see what Trucker John has. At least the Democrats are trying to improve things. The Republicans don't give a fuck about anything other than lowering taxes for the rich and eliminating regulations. You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting, Trucker? And I agree with you. But what's interesting is you really don't, they've never really claimed that they're lowering taxes for the rich. This time you haven't heard anything about that. You haven't even heard about taxes much. Their issues are, anti-Biden. Let's see, GOP, of course, but his political fortunes are.
They don't really have to say anything anymore, Dave. They are like those people. They're in the camp, and I think it's decided. We're at red alert right now. There is a real problem in this country because even if we win, they're going to obstruct. And how does the country continue?
That's divided. We stand.
Right.
or, it's such an immature kind of discussion. But Judy and I were having that discussion. My wife and I were having that discussion. I said, I'm at a point now where I really think we are two separate countries. And she said, but we can't be. And I said, well, she said, the division, what do you do with Chicago? What do you do? What do you do with St. Louis? What do you do with the cities that are Democrat you can't. I said, well, you could have the coast maybe, but then you have a split country. So I don't see after this, I don't see it. I mean, I'd love if anybody can come up with, I really don't see any way where we can be one united, and we've said it before, Brian, we've never really been united, never. I mean, but the difference is, I think there's all kinds of things. My one thing that I think will keep us divided is social media. Something else come up this week we're looking at. I know you're not on TikTok, but are you familiar with what that is, Brian?
Yes.
Okay. That is a really a problem for Joe Biden right now, for this reason. It is a Chinese social media site, and there's some real concerns about them using it for spying on Americans, right? But it's also the leading platform for young people,
right?
And he is actually taken to using TikTok, but he also might have to be
Well, Biden wants American ownership in TikTok. He wants to have the control.
But the problem becomes, again, that's another thing.
And they're worried about the Chinese cars coming in because they're afraid there'll be, security risks in that. I don't know. It's like the nuclear situation. Everything is, it's out of the body. We're all headed toward termination, Dave.
Well, you know what's
whether
funny?
we like it or not.
Again, for people who actually want to spend some time on there, the New York Times did a forever article, meaning it goes on forever, about the new nuclear threat, and it was pretty frightening. It came out
with Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it was very detailed about what it could be. I mean, and they say you've got a couple things going on. You've got Russia indicating that it may be able to put nukes in space, maybe. That came up for a while, but also just the idea of a tactical nuclear weapon used, in the Ukraine or anywhere else. I mean, 9 countries have, right? 7 anyway, and many of them, Russia is a belligerent country, right? You've got the ongoing battle between Pakistan and India.
They don't think they're belligerent, by the way. I just had that discussion today. They think they haven't done anything in the 19th and 20th centuries.
Well,
and if they did, it was a strategic move, like what they did in '39. She said it was a buffer zone that they needed between them and Germany, which is bullshit.
And I think I'll close with this. Each week, maybe I'll start doing this. There's a number. I've always been a fan of dystopian literature. It's one of my favorite genres to read or to watch. And I wonder, there are many classics, but 3 of the big ones would be 1984, Brave New World, and The Modern Handmaid's Tale. And obviously what we see going on right now has elements of all. But this week, I'm going to give the book that is the scariest because it's what's going on to Handmaid's Tale, based on Katie Britt's response and the idea of Republicans doing what they're going to do. So I think I see it by the clock of the wall that it is way
overtime.
Well, that's always good. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we don't want to keep you here forever, but as you can see with your comments and our comments and what's going, it's this is the first week, as I said. Anybody can disagree with me, but I consider this the first week of the election, and so much has gone on. And it's only going to get more and more and more, and so
it just doesn't look good, Dave. It just and to think that we live in this time period where we live in this very short time period, and look what's going on. We're going to lose it all.
I agree. The only thing I will say then again along those lines is I'm more optimistic this week about Biden winning than I was last week at this time. I
agree.
Based on a few things, based on what the State of the Union, based on the flubs of the Republicans in response to the State of the Union, and based on the ad that Joe Biden released today, I'm feeling a little bit better. But like Brian, you mentioned it before, there may only be 4 undecided voters out there. We don't know who will vote.
You know? I would be more concerned with malfeasance than any type of undecided voter. That's, to me, January 6th, Georgia has given me enough information.
Wait a minute, they were just tourists visiting.
Yeah, of course. You know.
Oh, did you see though, and not so good in that this week too, with so much to mention, we didn't. Did you see where there was a ruling where maybe at least 100 of they're not J6 hostages, the J6 insurrection, their penalty was too great, so they might be looking at that. And when that happens, that's like somebody said, they did an article, I forget where I saw it. Donald Trump is the luckiest politician in the history of politicians. And he may be true. You know, I mean, you get Fannie Wills down there, and that case alone. You get now, you know, with the insurrection, you get the Supreme Court ruling. Oh, no. What will you do when Biden wins? Does the politics stop? No. You keep it up because
you're going to have another January 6th.
Well, not only that.
Except we have the weapons this time.
But the thing is, I'll feel better because I think I can actually, if I have a problem with Joe Biden, not that I know him personally or anything, but you know, living here, I can protest all I want in Washington, D.C. It takes me roughly 10 minutes to get into the district, and within 15 minutes, I'm at the White House. So I can do that. And I'd much rather protest the Democrats than I would watching the country fail. But either way, there can always be improvement in government. But I just think at this point, and maybe I'll change or maybe somebody can convince me, I just don't see anything for me personally, for my family, for my neighborhood, for my county, for my state, for my region, or for my country in anything the Republicans have going.
And they're controlling these school boards too, which means that these kids are coming up with this type of mentality in these red states, and it's going to breed monsters, basically.
And like I said, you know, you think it's bad
this is
now.
absurd. This is not an absurdity. This is just
and I said tonight. I mean, whether we like, you know, what is Biden really saying? He's recognizing how badly broken many aspects of the American social contract, healthcare, housing inequality, salaries, taxes, and how all of that adds up. Yeah, you know, and they're big issues, huge issues. One that I spend some time worrying about is, you know, would be healthcare. You know, as many of you know, I had triple bypass surgery in April, and I got my bill. Wow. If I didn't have insurance, man, I mean, now that's a pretty involved surgery, but still a visit to the hospital emergency room, $4,000 to be transported to the emergency room. You know, so anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed. One thing, again, too, if you do ask people to join our Facebook page, I know a lot of us do just send out, you know, the notice and all that for other friends. But just if you could personalize it by saying, please answer the questions, because Brian, what did you say today? 40? About 40 you looked at?
Yeah, I think there's over 40. Just today, over 40 people applied to be members. But remember, they're being invited by other members, and it takes a little bit of time. But most don't realize they have to. It's just a simple thing. You can't go against Biden because he were trying to win. And there are a couple people. Not many, but there are a couple of people that are on the fence with me right now, like to bouncing them out. They don't realize, you know, they're getting close.
You know, and again, somebody might say, well, what about freedom of speech? I kind of consider myself somewhat an expert on freedom of speech. It's an area that I really know fairly well. I delivered talks on it and for 3 years at the museum. And freedom of speech is only really only really involves government can't censor your speech.
I had explained that to the Russian woman today. She said, why did Facebook do this and that to Trump?
And there are some areas where, is a school, government. I mean, there's some areas that, but we can, with a website or with a.
There you go, Jeff. Because remember, Jeff had the surgery.
Right. No, and that can, like I said, healthcare, huge issue, and we're the only. I think we're the only supposedly modern country that doesn't have some kind of healthcare.
Right.
All right.
Bye.
I
think that's it for today, folks. Tonight, Dave, it's good talking to you as usual.
Always.
And we'll see you next week unless anything happens.
Now, do that's you're doing it live from your bedroom? Do you use those lights?
No, this is just my office.
No, that's your bedroom. Don't try to disguise it. Do you use those? Do you use those lights for different things? I mean, like when it flashes one color, do you do something in the bed?
No. This is kind of like a New Year's celebration.
Oh, I got it. Green is.
I am, as you know, I'm colorblind, partially colorblind, but I'm fairly colorblind. I can only get a few things, but I like the basic colors and I like seeing them because it just pleases.
What I'm wondering though, like when you sit there, like does purple remind you of Marjorie Taylor Greene and the orange, Lauren Boebert? And the green, Christy Nolan.
You know what it reminds me of? And this is the truth. When I look at the colors, especially like the reds and the blues, it reminds me when I was a little kid during Christmas when there were snows and good snows. And then people would have their lights. I remember a neighbor, he just put up all blue lights, which, by the way, you noticed I liked it at my house. I love the snow and the blue, shading all over. I thought as a kid, I said, just love that look. And I don't like basic lights where it's just there's no particular color.
Given when you do these revealing moments on this show, have you considered therapy?
No, I don't need therapy.
Yeah, you do. Okay, no. You really do.
So I just like color. I just like color, like different warm colors, the cool colors. Yeah. Oh, Jesus! You have a thing here for you. Global solidarity.
Yes, they are indeed sweatpants, which is kind of nice. When you said that, global, it makes me laugh because growing up in South Jersey and spending 59 and a half years there, Philadelphia was our town, and it had, of course, as every big city does, it has its news organizations, and one of the big ones was Channel 6, which was ABC, local ABC affiliate. And the number one person on that show, newscaster, was Jim Gardner.
Right.
And I mean, he was a huge celebrity, as you can imagine. I mean,
he's originally from Buffalo, I think, in Buffalo.
Yeah. But what was interesting is he did not wear pants on the broadcast. He wore shorts, but he never stood up. So it is so that's a very appropriate question. As for mushrooms in closet, no. Again,
I stay away from smoke. Smoke isn't good for me.
No, you don't have to smoke mushrooms.
I don't like mushrooms. By the way, there's two things.
Have you ever done?
I've never done a mushroom. I hate mushrooms. Number one, just in general, and I hate mustard. There's two things, aside from things like herring and stuff like that. But I abhor mushrooms and mustard. Those are two things that make me want to vomit.
Now the green light, I think you said, was Lauren Boebert. What if Lauren Boebert offered you her undivided attention if you were to eat a mushroom? Would you eat a mushroom then?
No.
Really?
No, I don't. I don't like her at all.
Oh well, okay.
I think she likes you, Dave. I think she likes you.
No. And on that,
the question is, those watching at home, are they relaxing in short pants?
I like that. Jeff. Good point.
Say, here go Trev. I'm not wearing pants, PJs, because I'm old.
Oh. It's fine.
Why not? Trev, you got to relax.
Well, you know what? You know what? What's funny is the fact that we do this show, and I was telling somebody the other day. I said, but I don't like I don't like when lectures or things are delivered online. I like to be there. But the nice thing about doing this or doing anything like this is you can be as comfortable as you want. Yes. And if they're magic, they're even better. The mushrooms.
Do mushrooms have THC in it or no?
No, it's a different chemical.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Here's one for my. Since we're running way over time, it's fine. Here's something I've been wondering. I know in marijuana today, as a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, I not only don't use, I can't use. I mean, in that sense, but I've been noticing the odor of marijuana, since it's illegal in both D.C. And Virginia in places. It's what we used to call back in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, skunk weed. It has a really, and I wonder if anybody can tell me, where did the good smelling marijuana go to?
Maybe it's the hemp you're smelling or something. Then.
Or that's what I'm wondering. I mean, I don't know. I've got to,
because hemp, with the different types of gummies, whatever, the cannabinoids and the THC.
I don't know. I just something.
A lot of it's hemp related.
Yeah, I mean, but it does have
very small amounts, but.
But I mean, that's just something I've noticed, and it's very prevalent because it's everywhere. And the other thing is, I know it has a higher THC content today, but it also has a higher odor. We can be sitting next to a car or walking next to a car where somebody with the windows up or smoking, and you still smell it. So, but it's not as aromatic.
Yeah, you would know immediately. When I was in college, you immediately knew what it was.
Yeah.
Now it has that. I don't want to say, like, you remember they used to have those, what are they called, the cat tails or whatever?
Cat tails, right.
Kind of like a combination of that and whatever.
I can't even,
I'm not very good. Smell of cat tails,
I'm not really good with describing smells. I mean, I can smell them or not. So what I would suggest is that those of you watching decide whether you think those lights are for Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene or mushrooms. Yes, psilocybin. Is in mushrooms. However, some mushrooms are poisonous, so you have to know which mushrooms.
Botulism. See, that's another. I just don't like the consistency of them. If I found a mushroom in a pizza or in a burger, it just destroyed. I couldn't take it. Or mustard. Mustard did the same thing. I don't know why. I just can't.
So again, I hate to believe this fact, but if Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted you to spread mushroom on your genitals, or I'm not sorry, mustard on your genitals,
no,
you would not.
No, unless it's Ivory soap, forget about it. Oh, Joey's got a comment. Joey, Chris, Joey, do you remember when you worked at the? What did you guys do in the parking lot there?
I'm not going. This is now degenerated into something beyond.
Joey might be an expert at this. I don't know.
Bye.
All right. Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye,
everybody. It was real
fun.
All right. See everybody. Joey, Chris, Global, Trev, everybody, and we'll see you next week, hopefully. All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.